Neuroscientist and addiction expert Andrew Hill went on Joe Rogan's podcast, and he discussed a theory of addiction treatment that I thought was really interesting. Watch.
We were talking, Dr. Andrew Hill is on the podcast today, and we were talking before the podcast started. I didn't want to talk to you anymore. I wanted to get you in here and sit you down because you said something really fascinating, that you take people who may have problems with substances, and you, instead of getting them to abstain, you get them to use them responsibly, which is an alien concept in this day and age.
Yeah, I mean, this is not terribly common in substance abuse, sort of treatment world. There's a few companies that do it, and one of them is here in Los Angeles, Alternatives, and we will take people that, might have an issue with alcohol, let's say, and the only option is not abstinence for our program. We have moderation options, controlled use options, harm reduction. So someone might come in and say, look, I consider myself an alcoholic, but I want to start drinking again. Or, I'm someone who has been abstinent for a long time and struggles with craving, struggles with, choice. And whenever I slip big. Help me figure out how to not be that guy, how to use responsibly or to not use. So we don't necessarily say you must be a moderate user or you must abstain. We ask clients what they want to do and then help them figure out how to get there. And for many of them, they come to us because we do offer a moderate alcohol use approach.
That seems pretty novel. Is it? I mean,
it is pretty novel, yeah. One of our principals, Dr. Mark Kern, has been doing addiction work with moderation focus for about 30 years in LA. And so it's not, the newest thing ever, but it's newer than AA, of course, which has been around for, pushing 100 years now.
Yeah, AA people seem to think that that's the only way to go. You have to do the 12-step program. Yeah. You have to call everybody you ever wronged. You have to pray to Jesus. You have to...
Yep.
Drink a lot of coffee and smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, it must be. Yeah. I mean, the biggest difference for an alternatives approach or a harm reduction or moderation approach compared to AA, and in my perspective, is that a lot of the AA approach is disempowering. You must give up control, surrender. And I think that there's another option out there, and that's architecting more control, more power. Let's figure out your cues for over drinking. Let's figure out what happens, why do you get to 5 or 6 or 7 drinks? Like what happens on drink 2?
So I've never seen an expert talk about this issue in that way. Everybody who I've heard discuss this, who's a so-called expert over the years, has basically said you have to just stop. Abstain. You can't have any of whatever substance you're addicted to if you're addicted to it, because that, by definition, would be violating the whole idea of rehabilitation, and you can't do it. And he goes on to explain, and he did a little bit right there, that oftentimes that whole idea of abstaining is what leads to the crashes when people, like an alcoholic, goes off the fucking wagon and drinks themselves into a blackout stupor, is that they figure I've been good and then I violated it with 1 drink. Now, fuck it. While I'm off the wagon, might as well go nuts. Whereas his approach is for a lot of people, you can just teach them moderation and then they'll be able to moderate. He gives a statistic later on in the show, too, where he says 90 to 95% of people who are alcoholics never go to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, any rehab or anything, and they find a way to end up controlling their drinking. 90 to 95%. So at some point, they'll be like, well, I really am fucking drinking too much, and this is out of control. And they just cut back. And he's like, that's kind of the idea that we're working with here with what we do. So I think it's a great idea. And look, are there some people who probably have to abstain because of how they are genetically or biologically? And I know some of these people. I'm sure you know some of these people. Their personality is just not conducive to a little bit. They can't moderate. They don't know how to. It's impossible for them for whatever reason. I don't know why, but they exist. So are there some people who, that's the case and it is what it is and you should teach them to abstain? Yes. But for most people, I think moderation is the answer, and I don't think that's a crazy thing. And he even goes on later on to talk about how, because Joe brings up, well, what about this drug? What about that drug? What about cocaine? He goes, well, with cocaine, we teach, to abstain. And then Joe prods a little more, and then he admits, oh, no, but if cocaine was legal, don't get me wrong, then yes, we would teach a moderation approach. Now, your average person, when they hear that, fucking mind blown. They're like, wait, what? You can actually, moderately use cocaine? The guy's like, well, yeah, if it was legal, because because there's like, lawsuit issues where if they provide cocaine for somebody at this rehab place and they try to do a moderate approach to getting off cocaine, you can't do it for legal reasons. But if it was legal, he's like, well, yeah, you get a bump at 9 a.m. Boom. Next one you get is at 6 o'clock, and then that's it for the day. 2 lines all day, or whatever the case is. They come up with programs. I think it's a genius idea. I think in most cases it would work. And understand that it's like their competition is a punk bitch competition because AA sucks. There's some people who are devotees, and if it worked for you, I'm not taking anything away from you. I'm happy it worked for you, and I hope it continues to work for you. But the overall success rate of AA is like 2% or something insanely low. So what are we talking about here? That's not even rehab. It's a scam is what it is. And also, how about this wild idea? I like the idea of moderation. AA with the whole godly aspect of it is just stupid. But how about the idea of just using science to try to cure people of addiction? Like, I've given this example on air before, but I know people who, one of my friend's fathers, he was popping too many pain pills, and he was addicted to them. He was doctor shopping the whole thing. He was going way too far. He has a super addictive personality. Well, come to find out, you know what cured him? A pill called Suboxone. Now, Suboxone acts on the same receptors of the brain that the opiate pills do, the pain pills do, but it doesn't give you the high. Okay, that's what we call a cure. So your body gets its fix that it needs chemically to have the receptors in the brain reacting the same way it would if you were high, but you don't actually feel like you're high. So your craving is satiated, but you're not high. Okay, victory. Another thing for alcoholics. There's a pill you give people that are alcoholics where if they drink when they're on the pill, they throw up violently and they get terribly sick. You know what happens when people take it? They stop fucking drinking. Why? Because they learn, if I drink, I'm going to throw up, and I don't want to throw up. I'm better off not drinking. That's what we call a cure, or at least close to a cure. Okay, these are the things you need to look at in all the different areas. I love the idea of moderation, and I love the idea of using actual science to address these problems. What I don't like is the system we have right now with AA, which is basically a scam, and with other scam so-called rehabilitation centers, which preach no matter what, it's a moral failing if you start drinking again or start doing drugs again, and we blame you, it's a choice, and you must abstain or else. How about not? How about no? These other ideas are much smarter, much better, and much more scientific.